Well, we're going to continue on with The Wizard of Oz and pick up on where poor old Dorothy is. Because when we study The Wizard of Oz, it's very much like discovering the Bible, in which all of the characters have some part of us that they're talking about. So we're all part of Dorothy. So I want to continue on, because Dorothy is kind of making this hero's journey. And what I see is the flaw that's going on with Dorothy is that she's not living in the moment. She's not living in her life in the moment of life. She's not living and loving fully. She's not 100% alive, and she's not expressing creatively. And so I know we can all relate to this. I certainly can. And one of the things that I see about Dorothy as I watch the story is that Dorothy is just not in touch. She's not appreciating what is right now. So she has this idea in her mind, and I know that many of us struggle with often, that there must be better than here. We're just sure in our imaginations that there is just so much better than here, wherever there is. And one thing Dorothy doesn't realize, though, is that she's operating in a universe where there are spiritual laws, and there's a law of cause and effect going on, and she's unconscious of this. Now, this is not to blame Dorothy, because we know that God does not punish us. And there's just consequences for the way that we show up in life, for how we put it out there in the universe, for how we think and how we believe and how we imagine and what we say and what we do. The universe just gives back to us according to how we show up and according to how we participate. And it's not this random kind of stray thought that we have to worry about. It's what we hold in our mind and how we show up consistently, because consistency is the thing, and that's what the universe is responding to. So as I look at Dorothy, then I see a young lady who's not fully committed to her own life. Anybody here? And we know what that's like, don't we? Some days you wake up and you are so fully committed to your own life, and you say, I'm going to do my affirmations, and I'm going to do my prayer work, and I'm going to be loving to everybody I meet on the street. I'm going to be great in every aspect of my life, and I'm going to get my life together and let it shine. And the next day you wake up and you say, oh my God, I am so not committed to this in any way. See, the good news is we're all destined to wake up. We're all destined to wake up. We're going to get there. So Dorothy has dropped her house on someone. She's made an enemy just by being who she is. Isn't that interesting? Just by doing what you do in life, people get really upset with you sometimes. And Dorothy just happens to drop her house on the Wicked Witch of the East, which incidentally was terrorizing the whole land of Munchkin. Now, a house, metaphysically, represents a state of consciousness. So Dorothy's state of consciousness has dropped into Munchkin land, and on top of the Wicked Witch of the East. Now, basically, the good news for everybody is that the Wicked Witch is dead, until the Wicked Witch of the West shows up. And she asks, so who killed my sister? Was it you? And Dorothy says, well, I didn't mean to. It was sort of an accident. Well, how often have we said that? I didn't mean to create this mess. It was an accident. I didn't mean to think that way. I didn't mean to say that way. I didn't mean to do that. Well, you know, Dorothy was steering the house. If Dorothy wasn't steering the house, who was? She was the only person there and couldn't have been Toto. So if Dorothy wasn't steering the house, if she wasn't steering her consciousness, who was doing it then? So Dorothy's consciousness, bottom line, Dorothy's consciousness got that situation into play. And we're always steering our own consciousness. That's something we got to take responsibility for. We are always steering our own consciousness. And I believe what we get to look at is, do I like the direction I'm steering my consciousness? And I'm going to like where it gets me if I keep going in this direction. If we look at our life at the end of the day, when we go to bed at night, and we say, well, today wasn't a bad day. I only dropped my house on 4 or 5 people. And I think, wow, is that really what we want to be doing with our consciousness while leaving a bunch of bodies in the wake? Do we want to keep doing that in our life? Is that what we want to be living our life and doing with our life in the world? See, that's an unconscious act. Dorothy wasn't awake. And by awake, I mean Dorothy wasn't paying attention to her own divinity. Because if you think about it, when we're aware of the divinity that's within us, when we're aware that God is right where we are, we have no need to drop a house on anybody. We have no need to do anything awful or hurtful or to say anything hurtful or to think anything hurtful about anybody or about anything. Certainly about anybody, including ourselves, because we're aware of the divinity within us and we're aware that God is right where we are. We're aware that the gift is already right here. So like Dorothy, if we let our unconsciousness lead us, we will wind up where we didn't intend to go. And we'll be just like Dorothy saying, how did this happen to me? How did I get here? How did I get from there to here? I didn't think it was going to be like this. If I thought it was going to be like this, I wouldn't have done it. But I didn't take responsibility. I didn't do anything about it. This is why it's so important to do our spiritual work and to be committed to our own spiritual growth and practice, to continue to cultivate a relationship with the infinite, because life is going to continue to move us forward, either consciously or unconsciously. And like we always say, if you don't do your own thinking for you, there's a great big world out there that's more than happy to do your thinking for you. And the only difference is the world doesn't necessarily have your best interests at heart. The world is just going to move you along. See, Dorothy is also like the innocence within us. She's like the idea of the Christ within us. That light, and the light that's in the Bible. And that light in the Bible was threatened by Herod, King Herod. Herod wants to kill the Christ. So he has all the children under 2 years old killed. But we know, in Science of Mind, what we know is that the Christ within us can never be killed. It can never be extinguished. That light, that God light within us can never be extinguished. So the angel in the Bible comes to Mary and Joseph and says, you better hightail it out of here, honey. Get your things and go to Egypt. And then the club, we can come back later on. And I think that's a wise thing for us to remember also, that sometimes we have to protect the most sacred that's within us. Dorothy has made an enemy, but she has divine protection of God, infinite spirit, divine intelligence within her. And the outer symbol of this, of these incredible resources, Dorothy has the ruby red slippers, the fabulous ruby red slippers. And we know that there's something here in these ruby red slippers because Glenda, yet another witch, a good witch, tells her, never let the ruby red slippers off your feet or you'll be at the mercy of the wicked witch. Now this is great spiritual advice if you think about it. It's like saying, never forget God within you, or you will be at the mercy of everything and everyone around you. Never forget that whatever the situation you find yourself in, whatever is going on in your life, never forget forget that God, Spirit, the infinite intelligence, divine intelligence, the power is right where you are. And external things only have as much power in your life as you give them. See, the Wicked Witch of the West wants the slippers. She wants the awareness. She wants the inner resources that Dorothy has. It's like the world. The world wants us to forget our divine connection. The world wants us to be swept up in the flow and the gravity of things and the negativity. So Dorothy has landed on the Wicked Witch of the East, and she makes an enemy of the Wicked Witch of the West. And as I look at this, I think, well, this is certainly proof that sometimes the devil you don't know is worse than the devil you do know. And it's certainly the case that something worse is actually happening now. The witch from the West tries to scare Dorothy out of just whatever little bit of love, little bit of zest for life that she has. But it actually kind of backfires because the Wicked Witch of the West is putting Dorothy in difficult situation. And that requires Dorothy to reach deep within herself and pull out these wonderful spiritual resources that she has that heretofore she really hasn't had to call on before or use. It's interesting to me that sometimes in the darkest experiences that we have to dig deep into the deepest spiritually wonderful place that we have inside in order to keep our head above water. The witch tries to scare that away from Dorothy, and that little bit of commitment tries to scare that commitment out of Dorothy's life. And what happens is that Dorothy's commitment to her own life actually increases. So the Wicked Witch of the West tries again and again and again to prevent Dorothy from fulfilling her intention. Getting to Oz is just the goal. That's a temporary thing, but to get to Kansas and have another shot at life and to be loving and to be different and to be with her family, that's her real intention. And so the witch is saying, no, you're not going to have any love in your life. You know, I'm not going to allow that to happen. And so I wonder for us, where we might have a witch in our life, a bad witch. I want to be personally correct here. I know there are good witches and there are bad witches. But we're talking about good witch here. And there was a good witch. So if there's good witches out there in the crowd, we're coming to Halloween. I know that you're all good. But that being said, really, what is it that keeps us from living our life 100%? Because we could certainly say that that's sort of like the Wicked Witch of the West in our own life, couldn't we? The clue, though, is that life is a story. It's not outside of you. What keeps us from living our life 100% is really not outside of us. We might be saying my boss, or we might be saying my investments, or we might be saying my job, or this or that or another thing. My partner doesn't love me 150,000%. Clue here, it's not outside of you. It might be something that somebody said, but the problem isn't that they said it. The problem is that you ran with it, and you continue to run with it, and you're running with it to this day. So to say, I could really enjoy my life if, da-da-da-da-da, I would really love my life, I would really feel alive, I would really feel creatively expressed if, whatever the if was for you or is for you, that becomes the Wicked Witch for us. So the truth is that it's not based on externals. That what's happening in our consciousness today is what's going on. That's what we get to look at. That's our job. What are we believing? What are we telling ourselves? What are we feeling? So externals are not the power. This is basic to science of mind. God within us, the infinite within us, is always the power. And therefore, what's so about God is so about each and every one of us. So I thought that what keeps us from living 100% might be something really, really, really simple. It might look outwardly very innocent. It might be at the end of the day we watch 6 or 7 hours of TV. And that's actually what's keeping us from living our life 100%. And we say, well, I want to relax. I'm entitled to relax. I worked hard all day. I should be able to relax. Well, yes, you're entitled. Yes, you are. But is that what you really want? Or maybe it's some habit that we have. Or maybe we sleep for 12 to 13 hours a day. You know, so we don't have to be awake. To not have to participate in our own life. Or maybe we overeat. Or maybe we overdrink. Or we keep things in constant chaos or disarray in our life. Like a messy house or a garage that's just overflowing and packed to the fullest. And we think, well, that's just a garage full of stuff, not realizing that it takes some of our energy to maintain that stuff. It would be a shame to look back at our life for years from now and say, I didn't live fully. I didn't live my life fully because my garage was a mess. Or I didn't live fully because I never organized my finances. Or I didn't live fully because I never took the time to really take care of my body. So I think to myself, how alive would we be without those enemies? See, what we could look at this part of the story, is how alive would I be? How fulfilled would I be? How loving would I be without these particular enemies? Because those enemies, I think, they sort of suck us dry. They sort of just sap our strength. They're all within us, though. They're not outside. They're all within us. Although the temptation may be to say they're outside. They keep us playing life small. We say things like, well, I don't have to play big. I'm overwhelmed. How could I possibly play big? I'm so overwhelmed. I can't possibly shine. I'm too busy. I'm barely afloat. I can't do great things in my life. I can't step up to the plate. We want to make peace with our enemies so that they are no longer having any power in our life, so that we can be fully alive in our life today. And I think what keeps us from our intention, it might be something like, our own laziness. It might be that the world around us is telling us that we can't. But the problem isn't that the world says that. It never is. The problem is that we believe it. So do we give up what we want most for what we want in the moment? Is that what we do? And therefore never getting what we really, really want most? Science of mind says that God, spirit, divine intelligence is infinite. God knows no limitation. So if we allow the witch to prevent us, if we allow the witch to take away our joy, our love, we're doing ourselves a huge disservice. We really are. Which is so contrary to what Spirit intends for us. Because Spirit always intends for us to have a bigger experience, a greater experience of love, a more abundant life, perfect, wonderful, vibrant health. So what keeps us, like Dorothy, from living fully, from loving fully, from participating fully? The witch keeps Dorothy. And I thought, well, if I just looked at one area and I said to myself, so let's look at love. What keeps us from living and loving fully? I believe the witch there is fear. Fear of what? Fear that we might get hurt. Fear that our love might not be returned. And everybody understands that. So there's an actual agreement. We actually have this little unspoken agreement going on to support each other in our smallness rather than supporting each other in our bigness. So maybe we have a hurt and a story that we tell so that we can't move forward. Well, they didn't love me deeply. They didn't love me enough. They didn't love me as much as I loved them. Or they're not it. They're okay for commercials, but they're not really for the long-term show. So I'm not going to participate fully in this relationship. I don't want to really waste myself on this relationship. Because what if I was loving? And what if I was loving the wrong person all this time? And I put all this energy into the wrong relationship and the wrong person. The universe shows up with the right person, and my tank is empty if I go along those lines. My God, I goofed. I made a wrong choice. See, I think the enemy is what we say to ourselves in those areas. The enemy is what we say, and the wicked witch is a reflection of something in Dorothy's consciousness and in our own life. The wicked witch in our life, I think, is a reflection of something in our consciousness that does not let us love or live or participate as fully as we know and think we could. We don't have to feel like a victim, like Dorothy. We can have our own conscious awareness of God within ourselves. Dorothy feels like a victim of outside circumstances. And she does it really, really well. I watch the movie and I think, oh, poor Dorothy. She's not happy anywhere. She's not happy at home. She's not happy in Munchkinland. She's not happy at the Witch's Castle. She's not happy in Oz. She doesn't have any love where she is. She doesn't love life wherever she is. She doesn't participate in the presence of the moment, remembering that God is right where I am and all is well. And I could enjoy if I chose to. If I would make a choice, I could choose to enjoy this moment right here, right now. She's playing the game that I like to call someday someday I'll be understood. Someday I'll be happy. Someday I'll be with loving people. Someday I'll be fulfilled. She just keeps putting it off and sending it way out there into the future. I don't want to get caught in that script. Yes! Someday it might be different, but right now I get to enjoy. Someday it might be different, but right now, here today, I get to be fulfilled. Someday it might be different, but right now, right here, I get to feel wonderful about love in my life. So my hope for Dorothy is that she goes back home and with Auntie Em and Uncle Henry, and she's learned something from this. That she's been through an experience and she's learned something from it. And then she can say, I see my part in this. I've really grown. I will be responsible. I will stay away from Miss Gulch's garden. And if I have to go there for any reason, I will pick Toto up. Or I will put Toto on a leash and we'll run past. I will not do what doesn't work anymore. I will do it differently in the future. In fact, I will help out at home. I will participate. I will give. I will not just be a taker. See, because my thought is that Dorothy has the capacity to have this amazing realization that abundant life comes from what we give. What we give, not from what we take. The bigger the life we want to lead, the more responsible we have to be. That's just the way it is. There will be internal enemies along the way. I call them emotional conflicts, and mental blocks. That's my psychology background. And what they are is they come from past experiences that we have not seen the truth about. Things that we've been through, that we made an opinion about or a decision about, and we've not brought them to the light of healing. So they continue to affect us in some limiting or negative way. And what might they be? What might they They might be things like a grief that we haven't dealt with, or a resentment, or an anger, or an obsession that's not completely healed in our life. So what they do is they just remain enemies along our journey. They get in the way of our own good. Life doesn't work well. It's like we say to the universe, I get so much value out of this anger or this resentment. I'm willing for my life not to work as well as it could, just so I can keep it. And see, the thing we want to realize here is that those things become our enemies. But they don't have to stay our enemies. That we can say that I want my life to work better now. So I'm making peace with my past, whatever that's been for you. And those things we don't know quite how to let go of yet, I think it's really quite simple. I think we simply say, I surrender this. I surrender this to God. I surrender this to Spirit. I surrender this to divine intelligence. I surrender this to something greater than me that I am a part of. I've had this anger so long, it just seems to be a part of me. I don't know how to make it go away. Oh, so God, I'm inviting you to fill my mind and fill my heart and help me deal with this anger within me. I have this resentment. I've had this bad feeling about something for so long. I have this grief that just seems to hang over me. Whatever it is for you, simply say, I'm just willing. I'm willing to give it to God so that I can move forward. So I can move forward and start living the life I came here to live. And so it is.